again guys, it's Carly from the Poetry of Nice, and today I have another weekly comments roundup video for you guys. First of all, if you are new here, this is a channel all about reselling online. I sell on 3 platforms, Etsy, eBay and Poshmark, and I do that while being a stay-at-home parent to 3 boys, 5 and under, so it's definitely a lot to do with balancing. I like to talk about that here on this channel, but I also like to show haul videos, things I buy to sell, sales videos, what those things actually sell for, and then some how-tos, some tutorials from day in the life and other cool stuff in between. If that sounds interesting to you, please do think about hitting that subscribe button down below, and don't forget to say hello in the comments so that I can say hi back. Alright, as per usual, the comments video is going to go like this. I'm going to read out a comment, it's either a comment or a question, and then I'm going to answer or respond to it, and hopefully that will help somebody else out there who may have similar questions, and also it's just a really fun way for me to get to know you guys and to kind of say hello in person rather than just writing back through the comments as well. So the first comment today is from Cuticle Cutie. Hi Carly, sometimes I will look at the solds and use that title in my new listing, or a combination of sold titles. This seems to help since I know someone searched closer to the way a sold one was listed. So I had to share this comment because I thought it was genius. I don't know. I do sort of do the same thing myself in terms of when I look at comps, I might look for certain keywords and things like that and go ahead and rearrange my title to include those. But she was really referring to my cursed items videos, and I'll link that here up above in case you haven't seen that, where I was talking about certain items that I felt like should have sold because they were a good style or a good brand, but they just hadn't. And I'm going to touch on that towards the end of the video as well, and a lot of the feedback I got in that video, because that was so invaluable to me. And I wanted to share kind of a roundup of what I learned from doing that. But I thought this was such a great place to start in terms of look and see what those items that sold that are just like yours, those comparable listings, how were they listed? What keywords drew in a buyer? What keywords allowed their search to lead them to the item that they were looking for? Such a good idea, and absolutely I would suggest doing that. And maybe even, you know, if there's something that has sold higher than the rest of them, take a closer look. How did they present it in the pictures? How did they style it? What's in their description? Is there something that you're missing in your description that's really sort of imperative about this item, that's a selling point that maybe you have overlooked? There are definitely some great things to be learned from the people who have gone before us and sold similar items. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was such a good tip. Okay, so the next one is from Jessica Knight. It says, I love your updates, especially since you sell on multiple platforms. Absolutely true. I currently am only reselling on eBay, but really giving Poshmark some thought. I'm nervous about cross-listing. Any tips that you can recommend? Yes, so my number one tip, and I think most people who cross-post would say this, is to stay on top of all of the different platforms that you have cross-posted on. Easier said than done, I know, but pretty much here is how it breaks down in most simple terms possible for me. If I list an item on multiple platforms, say I start a listing on eBay, then I cross-post it to Poshmark, and if it's a vintage item, maybe to Etsy as well. When that item sells on whatever platform that it is on, I stop what I'm doing. That's the only way I can describe it. I stop what I'm doing and I take it down off of the other platforms. If I'm not sure if it's listed, I go ahead and check, and I make sure I check in the listed items, like active listings on eBay and Etsy, and I also check in the unsold as well in case it has dropped off. And then when I go to relist, I don't want to be relisting an item that I've just sold on a different platform and just not made the connection. So I make sure I check both areas on eBay, active listings and unsold. And then when it comes to Etsy, I pretty much do the same thing. Active listings, I would deactivate it, and then expired listings as well, because those are things that I go in and relist, and again, just in case I miss making that connection. Other than that, I would say go wild with it. Something like Poshmark, if you're really thinking of starting that, I absolutely urge you to. First of all, there's really nothing to lose in terms of like monetary wise, because they don't charge you to list. They only charge you a 20% fee after your item has sold. And I find it's really, really simple to cross post from eBay to Poshmark specifically. It's really a matter of pulling off your photos and popping them in. They also have the square dimension, just like eBay and Etsy do, so you really don't have to do anything to your photos per se, and then you can just copy and paste that description and some of that title. Now the thing with Poshmark is it's a little bit more limited in terms of the characters you can use in your title and your description, so you may find yourself, you know, sort of taking out words here and there to make it fit. And also when it comes to photos, it's a little bit more limited as well. eBay has 12 photos, Etsy Etsy has 10 photos, Poshmark has a lowly 8 photos that you are allowed to put. I've mentioned this before as well, but if you feel like you need all 12 photos to show your item to the best of your ability, perhaps there's flaws or some wear if it's an older item, I would recommend going to photor.com, and I'll link that down below as well. Totally free, and I use that in order to put photos in a collage. So I'll either do like 2 side by side in a single photo, square of course, or I'll do like 4 in one. That just gives me the ability to give more visual information to my buyer within the limit of the 8 photos of Poshmark, especially if on eBay I really felt like those 12 photos were important in terms of describing my item accurately. Okay, so the next comment is from Cinder Pike, and it says, "Hi Carly, I have a question for your weekly comment video. Do you do any kind of customer retention?" Oh, what a question. For example, if a case is open, Poshmark sorts it out and the case is closed, then I was thinking of personally reaching out to a buyer to apologize and share their closet. Thanks, and thanks as always for sharing your wisdom. I won't call it wisdom, but thanks, Cinder. So I really liked this question, and it absolutely had me reflecting for the last few days, because I'm not sure that I really do any customer retention necessarily. Perhaps I'm missing out, I'm not sure. But in terms of like the context you're talking about there within a case, I personally don't reach out to a buyer afterwards. I'm sure I could. I can't imagine that it would necessarily hurt, although some people, you know, if their level of irritation is particularly high, perhaps they're not receptive to that. I'm not sure. And you don't really want to sort of kick something off afterwards. But if it is an issue with an item that is my fault in terms of I've really messed up on my measurements, or I've absolutely missed a flaw, I will do everything that you said there about being apologetic and all that kind of stuff, like being very easy to work with within the context of the case. So I'll be sure to respond to the case with, you know, massive apologies, however I want to phrase that, and let them know that it was a sincere mistake, and then to obviously say as well, Poshmark, please approve this return. Essentially, I don't want my buyers to think that I'm offering them any friction really when it comes to them returning an item that my mistake was why they needed to return it in the first place. For me, I think customer retention comes more in terms of like presentation and packaging. I've spoken before, I don't do anything wild and wonderful in terms of packaging my items on Poshmark, but if there's a very large sale or a bundle or something like that, I tend to pop in a handwritten note. Many people do, and I'm not sure how far that really goes nowadays, but I do know that it's mentioned on my love notes when I do, and I have had repeat customers from that kind of interaction or providing that kind of service. Whether or not that tipped them over the edge, I'm not sure, but that is something that I tend to do when I have sort of, like I said, that large purchase or multiple items purchased. I also make sure that I respond to every single comment. I do my absolute best. I'm sure 1 or 2 slips through the cracks, like don't get mad if I accidentally forgot to respond to a comment once, but for the most part I respond to every single comment, every single question, even if it's something like someone just saying that they loved an item and you know, they wish it was their size or something like that. I do my best to not let it slip through my newsfeed. I'm sure once in a while I do, and I just kind of catch it like when I'm sharing or something like that and it's been a little while, but for the most part I respond immediately when I see it, and then that way you can let your buyers know that you're somebody who's, again, easy to work with but also available. A lot of times on Poshmark, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but I will send an offer or I'll ask a question and I get crickets. I never hear back from anybody, and I don't want my customers to have that experience at all. I want them to feel very safe shopping with me in terms of if there's an issue, they know it's going to be easy to turn that around and for me to make it right for them, if it's my fault obviously, and then I also want them to know that if they do have queries and questions and stuff, I'm very open to having a conversation with them, and a friendly one at that. Okay, so the next one is a comment that I'm just going to share because I really enjoyed it. It was from the cursed items video again, and it's a long one, so I'll just kind of consolidate a little bit, but it's from Liz Wright, and it said, the good thing about Poshmark is you can store your inventory without being charged fees. That's absolutely right. I'm here waffling on about, you know, oh, it hasn't sold in 7 months or whatever, but realistically, like, I can go ahead and I can improve my item, take different photos, improve titles and descriptions and stuff, but really it's not harming anything sitting there being shared. It's really not bothering me. It's just a case of me wanting to try and figure out how I can avoid those kind of situations, don't we all? But she's right, you're not charged anything, there's really no harm done, and sometimes it takes months and years for something to sell. Absolutely. I've had items on Amazon for several years and all of a sudden it sells. Just let it sit in inventory. I often take my stale clothing to consignments, like, and she mentioned a store, and this was the advice that I thought was really interesting. Consigners will tell you what sells. Number 1, sweater dresses don't sell, she says. And then she goes on to name a few different things that she has found from speaking to consigners and things like that, that have led her to avoid picking up certain items, certain styles, because they're just not popular. I thought that was really interesting. That is something that I just hadn't thought of before, like maybe going into a consignment store and seeing what they have on their racks, because they are so very hands-on, right, about what is moving quickly, like physically within their brick and mortar store. I know personally, Plato's Closet, I actually tried to take a bag of clothes a week ago, of things that I wasn't selling. I just tried to go do it and they didn't take a single item. And her comment really stood out to me, because why would they? That's not stuff that's selling. It's not popular, the style isn't right, the brand isn't right. And so that kind of like was a wake-up call for me in a way of, you know, there's no point me doing that with them necessarily, the particular one that I went to, because they try and sell the same stuff that I do. Now, if I bagged up all of my best inventory that I'm waiting to sell online and have lots of likes and stuff, I'm sure they would have offered me some money for it, but they don't want the runoff essentially. And so I'm starting to look at that a little bit more. I actually had to wander around the store while I was there with all this in mind, just to see what all was on their racks and what all they were accepting. And it's definitely changed from what it used to be. I can see like how the styles are changing and shifting and things like that. And I just thought that would be very interesting to share with you guys in case you wanted to do something similar, like maybe take a walk around a store one day, or, you know, even I guess maybe like thread up and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that would work necessarily. Anyway, food for thought is pretty much what I wanted to share with that one. Okay, and so my like number 5 of my weekly comment roundup is actually just going to be an overall summation, if you will, from my cursed items video. So I got so much feedback, hundreds and hundreds of comments, and what I wanted to do is reflect really quickly on what people shared with me, because there were some very common threads in there. So for instance, a lot of people told me about my mannequin. So I have a black colored mannequin now, with like a pattern on it, and I have her, I have to say she's about dead, which is really sad. So I'm going to be purchasing a new one anyway, so it came at the right time. But I got her at $5 at a yard sale. So when I was first starting out and I found her, it was an absolute no-brainer to pick her up and use her. She's like a dress form more than a mannequin. So what a lot of people pointed out is that because there's a dark colour behind some of the pieces that I had, especially some of the pieces that were brightly coloured or sheer, that it was really dragging down the colour palette. My items weren't popping. They maybe looked like they were just kind of like dingy, something like that. It just wasn't really selling my items for me, and I thought that was fantastic. I honestly can say I didn't really look at that before. I just thought presented nicely on a dress form, all good. And now that I look at it, you're right. You're absolutely right. The whole thing would be brightened up with like a lighter coloured, a white coloured mannequin. I did repaint my white wall as well, just to try and bring it a little bit more to life, you know, get that stark whiteness back, because after a little while, obviously things do sort of tone down in colour. But overall, I thought that that was a fantastic piece of feedback, and so many people said it to me that I kind of was scratching my head at the end of it, thinking, why did I not think of that before? Also, some people did offer advice in terms of honing in a little bit more on like patterns or sort of special things about the pieces, whether maybe it's like some beadwork or the print or some kind of ruffle detail. Maybe just try to include that in my cover photo to try and draw people in a little bit more in regards to what is special about my item, and I thought that was a great piece of feedback as well. And then lastly, so many people told me, iron your clothes, steam your clothes. So I will be trying to invest in a steamer or get the iron out once or twice, just to try and improve those photos. And most of all, I just wanted to say such a huge thank you to everybody who took the time to share their insights, share their experience, give me that feedback and stuff, all in an effort to help me improve my business and to sell these items. I could not be more grateful for everybody who did that. All right, you guys, that is the end of the weekly comments roundup. Thank you so much. I wish you all the most amazing week. I hope sales creep upwards for you as the sun starts coming out. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are new here and haven't subscribed yet, please do think about hitting that subscribe button down below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.